interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 97 of Vikings Uncensored. Our long national nightmare is now over, ladies and gentlemen. We have a defensive coordinator. It was announced on...
Thank God it's not Mike Pickett.
Yeah. It was announced on Monday that Brian Flores has accepted the position of defensive coordinator for the Vikings. Get ready for some aggressive defense compared to what we had last year.
You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
We are looking at a complete 180, the way Brian Flores calls a defense from the way old Donashell did his. So,
I agree, yes. Night and day, Rhino, night and day.
Night and day. If you look, there's been a thing that's kind of been floating all over the Twitters and social media stuff the last few days. A couple years ago, when Flores was still the head coach of the Dolphins against the Baltimore Ravens, they ran a zero blitz 35 times in one game and completely just destroyed Lamar Jackson all night long.
I think they showed that package actually 40 times, and 35 of those times they ran the zero blitz.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think we blitzed 35 times the entire season with Donatello.
Exactly. No shit.
So going to be interesting here in the upcoming weeks to see, Flores is going to require a different kind of player than Donatello did. Of course, our players didn't fit Donatello's scheme anyway, but
not many did.
No. So will be interesting. I mean, Flores puts an emphasis on pressuring the quarterback. One thing that he said that during his intro here on, I think it was Tuesday, whatever it was, when they asked him what kind of scheme, he says, I'm not going to be pigeonholed into a 4-3, a 3-4, whatever, because every team is different and every situation and every game is different.
Exactly what you want to hear from the defensive coordinator.
Yep. Not, we're going to play a 3-high shell coverage on every goddamn play for 17 weeks and see if they can stop us.
And a bunch of bullshit garbled in between that all that.
Yep. I'm not concerned with giving up yards. I think you're going to like the way we play.
That still pisses me off yet.
Oh, I know. I'm still livid about that, but
I don't think we've had a defensive coordinator here that's been as aggressive as we're going to see this coming season in a long time.
No, we haven't.
That's actually going to, like we've been preaching throughout the season, too, how there's nobody out there right now that was scared of us all year this year. Nobody was scared of us. Nobody's been scared of our defense for a long time. Well, I believe this next season that's going to change.
This is going to be a defense where Danielle Hunter is going to thrive, I believe. We had talked about Harrison Smith possibly being on the way out. Now, with Flores joining the mix, Harrison Smith is actually the ideal safety for what Flores likes to do.
Yeah. Just by all means, just last season alone, he still got it. He's in that league of Palomalu where he can play into his 30s and still be a good safety.
Well,
Brian
but
Dawkins in another one.
Yeah, but you look at the numbers with Harrison Smith, 2020 and 2021 under Mike Zimmer, that he averaged like 30 to 35 blitzes a year. Again, under Donatel last year, they blitzed him 12 times.
Right. And in a way, we were kind of told that he wasn't going to be playing close to the line at the beginning of the season last year, which is, in my opinion, disappointing, and I'm sure yours as well.
Oh,
which is why we're talking about it. I always loved seeing Smith come down to the box and disguise what he was doing as a safety. You know, that playing mind game is his best game, in my opinion.
Yep. So anyway, it'll be interesting here to see how this pans out. It's going to be an interesting next month when they start having to make decisions on players and things like that. But of course, on Sunday, Vikings Nation was collectively having a serious sphincter clinching when after Denver finally let Ejiro Avaro out of his contract on Saturday, all the talk was he was going to come here and interview with the Vikings, and he was interested, and the Vikings were interested in all this good stuff. Then all of a sudden, Sunday night, they put out a news release that he has signed as defensive coordinator of the Panthers. And there again, all of Vikings Nation was like, oh, fuck, here we go. We're going to be stuck with Pettine, blah, 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 because Flores had been pegged for a second interview with the head coaching job with the Cardinals. Plus, Denver was supposedly going to interview him for his defensive coordinator.
We were all pretty low at that point.
Yeah. So as us being Vikings fans, we all said, well, here we go. Mike Pettine's going to be our goddamn defensive coordinator.
Right.
I go on a
tirade on our webpage here on Facebook.
Yep.
No later than 30 minutes later, news breaks about Flores getting hired.
Mm-hmm. So you're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Brunswick got him for us.
They heard me, man. They heard me.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on here for a few more news items, and then we're going to roll into start our positional breakdowns this week. Starting off with the quarterback position, we got some good stuff for you coming up. We'll do a Super Bowl preview later on. And, of course, we got another Brunswick's Best and a few other things we'll throw in along the way. So more NFC news, NFC North news. Of course, Aaron Rodgers has announced he's going to do a 48-hour darkness retreat to contemplate his NFL future.
Perfect, dude.
I swear to God, that guy's nuttier than a squirrel on meth anymore.
Dude, he's just all about himself.
Well, he's an attention whore. He wants attention. He knows when he says crap like this, the national media and everybody's going to talk about it for a freaking week.
Like, it's what a circus it is. I don't know. I don't even know. I'm speechless, man.
A dark
coming out as Nicolas Cage before camp last year, and then grabbing his nipples during practice, and then ayahuasca tea shit, and now this darkness retreat. What the fuck is going on over there?
I don't know.
A-Rod Town.
Yeah, I don't know, but we've given him enough talk on here. We just wanted to mention it just because it was freaking stupid. And we wanted to bring it up. But also NFL news this week. NFL announced on Wednesday that starting in 2023, they will have a flexing option for Monday Night Football. So we will no longer have to worry about watching the Denver Broncos for 4 straight weeks because if they're playing like
it almost guarantees that every Monday night game is going to be a good game.
No, I'm not sure if they're starting. I doubt they're going to start at week 1, but I would guess after like 3-4 weeks they'll kick it in.
Yeah.
Kind of see how things go with that, but it's a welcome change. It is because you're going to get a prime game on Monday Night Football where you're going to draw more ratings.
Prime time, and you know what? Al Michaels won't get. Well, he's still doing those Thursday night games. He might get stuck with a couple blunders, but all those primetime games should be flexed, in my opinion, to the best games of the week.
Yep. And they did mention that they're not going to be flexing Thursday night games this year, but they're reserving the right to possibly do it in the future. So beyond that, the trade season is starting to fire up. On Wednesday, it was announced that the Saints and the Raiders have agreed, at least in principle, to compensation and allowed quarterback Derek Carr to go talk to the New Orleans Saints about potential trade going on there. So Carr has has a no trade clause in his. So basically, listening to Ian Rappaport,
I'm pretty sure he'd waive that for pretty much any other team in the league at this point. Where I would if I was him. If I don't feel wanted to be there, then why even bother?
Mm-hmm.
So
now, Ian Rappaport was on Pat McAfee's show on Wednesday, and he basically said, provided that Carr's camp and the Saints can come to an agreement on contract and everything else, he said this will go through.
Good fit,
so,
and that's good. It's a good change for both parties, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll work out, I think, excellent for everybody involved.
Then also announced this week the 5th-year option contract pricing for the 2020 draft class was announced, meaning that when Justin Jefferson goes on his 5th-year option, not 2024 but 2025,
Right.
He'll be making $19,743,000.
It's a good payday for a wideout.
Which $19.7 million is going to be a bargain compared to what his next contract is going to get him, because he's going to be up around $30 million.
Right.
Speaking of contract stuff, rumor floating around again middle of the week, and comes from a fairly reliable source, Darren Doogie Wilson from KSTP in the cities, reporting that Dalvin Cook is not interested in taking a pay cut to stay with the team this year. So
bye.
And Doogie's not going to report something like this unless he's got credible information behind it. So I would say the chances of Dalvin Cook sticking around are dwindling by the day with stuff like that going around. Of course, we have basically a month from now to get cap compliant and get some money available to sign free agents and everything else. I think the new league year starts the 13th of March.
That sounds about right.
Somewhere right in there anyway. You got the legal tampering period and you got the league year starting 13th and 15th or something like that. Right in that.
I think if we just cut bait with Cook, it would open up like 7 point something worth in calories cap space. So
yeah, so there's money there. Of course, you got Kendricks, you've got Adam Thielen. You got to figure something else out with.
There's going to be a huge turnover rate in this all over this team, and there's going to be some fans out there that are going to. There always is. There's some fans out there that just have a harder time letting go of some of these players than the other fans do. It's at the end of the day, it's a business. Do you want to get better, or it's just there's a lot that goes into it.
Right.
So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of players that are not on the team next year.
Yeah, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's Kendricks, it's Hicks, it's we're looking at possibly 6 to 7 new starters.
Hitman was on that list before.
Mm-hmm. But now,
Hitman was on that list before Flores was hired.
Yep. But now I would guess he probably sticks around now, and with him he doesn't have any more guaranteed money after this year, so you could probably move a little of that around. Brian O'Neill, you can restructure O'Neill's contract without even talking to him because it's already built into it, so there's some money there. And Rob Brzezinski will work his magic as he always does, but I just don't want to be kicking cans down the road like we have been on all these legacy contracts for so long.
You know what? Last year we were talking about we're not going to be able to sign nobody. We're not going to be able to make no moves. Well, guess what? We went out, we made some moves, and we signed some good pieces to this team. I believe a competitive rebuild can happen and it's possible. There are teams in this league that have been able to stay relevant for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to figure out how to do it. And we're in the process, I believe, of doing that.
Yeah. Hopefully, anyway.
Right.
But with that, we're going to roll into our start of our positional breakdowns for the team, kind of what's available, what's there, what we think. Starting off, of course, with the most important position on the team, the quarterback position. As it sits right now, the Vikings currently have one quarterback on roster, and that is one Kirk O'Chain's himself, Kirk Cousins. Of course, Nick Mullins is a free agent, could potentially return. We don't know. They had Josh Rosen on the practice squad, but they released him before the wild card game. Interesting list of free agent quarterbacks this year, though. So Mullins isn't necessarily the only option out there. Here's some of the big name quarterbacks that could potentially be available. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, Jimmy will start someplace. Mayfield possibly as well. Teddy Bridgewater, Case Keenum, Mason Rudolph, Jacoby Brissett, Geno Smith, Andy Dalton, Taylor Heineke, Drew Lock, Cooper Rush, Tyler Huntley, Jarrett Stidham, Easton Stick, Minshew Mania himself, Gardner Minshew, Chase Daniel, Mike White, and Joe Flacco. And there are a few others too, but those are some of the more prominent names.
Hang him up, bud.
What's that?
Joe Flacco needs to hang him up, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a handful of names on there that I would take as a backup quarterback.
There was a couple I kind of went that piqued my interest for sure.
Or if
I was going back to Seattle, barring what happens in the draft, but I see Geno back in Seattle.
Yep. Or if little warning for the Kirk stands. If we decide to, or we get an offer and we move on from Kirk, there's even a couple of guys in there that could potentially be a bridge quarterback for a year if we needed it.
Yeah, that's true.
Not going to start a holy war between the Kirk stands and the anti-Kirks here. Just throwing that little tidbit out there, I guess. Now we're going to dive a little bit into the historical deal with the Vikings. You hear all the time, we can't get rid of Kirk because the only other option is we're going to end up with another Christian Ponder. The Vikings can't draft quarterbacks, this, and everything else. So I did a deep dive. I went back and looked through the entire draft history of the Minnesota Vikings and took a look at what we have done at the quarterback position. Since 1961, the Vikings have drafted 25 quarterbacks. Well, this isn't counting any undrafted free agents, things like that. But we keep talking about we can't draft. We're never going to draft a quarterback in the first round because everything we always miss at it when we do. Of those 25 quarterbacks we have drafted, only 4 of them were first-round picks. Tommy Kramer in 1977, picked 27th overall. Dante Culpepper, 1999, taken 11th overall.
Right.
Teddy Bridgewater, 2014, taken 32nd overall. And, of course, Christian Ponder, 2011, drafted 12th overall.
And most of the other ones outside of that have all been like hand-me-downs from other teams, in my opinion. I mean,
now,
not in my opinion, just in facts.
Right. Now, of those 4 quarterbacks we have taken in the first round, there's really only one that you can say was a legitimate bust, and that was Christian Ponder. And a big part of that is Christian Ponder should never have been taken in the first round.
For us to label him that because it's not his fault that he got drafted that high.
Right. Ponder didn't have a first-round ranking by anybody in the 2011 draft. What happened was that Spielman knew we needed a quarterback. The run on quarterback started about pick 7 in that year. and he
Fucking freaked
panicked.
out.
He did
Bingo.
one of those patented Spielman panic picks and took the next quarterback on the board, even though he was like, by most accounts, a third-round grade. He took him at pick 11.
He probably had like a picture of Ryan Mallett, a picture of Christian Ponder, and a picture of, was it?
Jake Locker was
Jake
the one.
Locker, there you go. And he threw a dart, and whatever one it hit is who he took.
Well, no, because Ryan Mallett and Jake Locker were both gone. Because I still think the Vikings wanted Jake Locker.
Mallett was still there.
No, I think he went before.
No, Mallett went to the Patriots in like the 32nd pick or whatever.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Whatever. But I think they wanted Jake Locker
right now, anyways. But
right. But when Tennessee took Locker, then Spielman panicked and grabbed Ponder.
I
But looking
at that year, honestly.
Yeah, but okay. The other three quarterbacks, Teddy Bridgewater, you really can't say because he was starting to progress until his knee exploded on him.
That's a what if. That's a what if. Basically, it really is.
Tommy Kramer, I'm going to put him right at that franchise quarterback level. I mean, he played here for 10 years. Second most passing yards in team history, all that stuff. So
Absolutely.
I would call that a success pick.
Yep.
Dante Culpepper, for the most part, up until that year when he got injured, he was well on his way to potentially being a franchise quarterback.
You know what though, Sir Francis of Bloomington or whatever, Fran Tarkenton made it really hard for this team drafting quarterbacks moving forward because he was one of the greatest to ever lace them up, man.
Right. And we'll get to Fran here in a second. But so basically, realistically, you can say out of we've drafted 4 first-round quarterbacks in 62 years, and only one has been a legitimate bust. So saying we can't draft a quarterback in the first round is bullshit. We just don't have the stones to do it, to move up to grab one or to try half the time. It seems
4
like.
times in 60-something years drafting a quarterback in the first round, that just tells you exactly we don't have the fucking stones to do it.
Yeah, Cleveland drafted 4 quarterbacks in 4 years in the first round, I think. They're back 10 years ago or so.
They just haven't hit on them. Right.
But anyway, moving on. So we've had 4 quarterbacks in the first round, only 2 picks in the second round. Of course, Tavares Jackson in 2008, where there again, Brad Childress thought he was way smarter than he was and was going to pick as he put it, lump of clay that he could mold into whatever he wanted, even though T-Jack had probably a 3rd to 4th round grade on him.
2.0.
Rest in peace, T-Jack, but yes.
Amen.
Then the only other quarterback we've taken in the second round was Bill Koppelman in 1970.
Whoever the fuck.
I'm sure everybody knows who Bill Koppelman was.
Sounds like a sitcom actor.
Yeah.
Starring Bill Koppelman.
Mm-hmm. So and then in the third round, we've only taken 2. Of course, St. Francis of Bloomington, hallowed be thy name. And that was in 1961, of course, our inaugural season. And then Kellen Mond in 2021 was the other third round pick. So after that, the total number, 68% of the quarterbacks that this team has drafted over its 62-year history were taken in the 4th round or later. And once you hit that 4th round or later, there is a very low percentage chance that those quarterbacks are going to turn into a legitimate starting quarterback.
We got lucky with Brad Johnson in the 9th round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
good old Brad Johnson coming off the farm, it seemed like, but no, he wasn't a farm boy. I think he's from California, wasn't he?
Well, he went to Florida, but
yeah, I think he's a surfer or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember, but anyway, since you brought up Brad Johnson, here are some of the notable guys that we picked later on that kind of panned out a little bit. Bob Lee was drafted in the 17th round in 1968. the aforementioned Brad Johnson picked in the 9th round in 1992. Whiskey Wade Wilson, drafted in the 8th round, 1981. He was a starter for a few years here. Steve Bono.
He was in and out for a while.
Yep. Steve Bono, who didn't do a whole lot with us, but did start for, I think he started for San Francisco for a couple of years, and somebody else.
Man. U2, the singer, he became the lead singer of U2.
Bono, not Bono.
Oh, okay.
So he was drafted. Yeah.
He sang
that's
with
Sonny.
Cher.
No, that's Sonny Bono.
Oh!
This is Steve.
I got you, babe.
Sonny's 6th cousin, twice removed.
Right on.
But anyway, so that's a few of the notables. I'm not going to go through the entire list of the 25, but like I said earlier, this is part of the, we're always in that range where we're average. We're not horse shit. We're not top of the pier. So we're never in that position to draft a quarterback, but we also have never had the cojones to put a package together to move up and get somebody. And that's going to have to change at some point in time.
Or we're just going to have to go out and find our guy and do whatever it takes to get him, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well,
find our guy that we think is going to guarantee us the best shot to be here for the next fucking decade and lead this team and go out and get his ass, whatever it takes.
Yep. Now, I don't think that's going to happen this year, unless somehow or another we get enough significant draft capital.
Out of Florida, dude.
He's not going to make it out of the top 10.
Go fucking get him. I'm serious. That would be ideal.
I'm not sold on him. I mean, he's got a lot of Josh Allen tendencies, which I do like about him.
I'm saying he's like a hybrid between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, dude. You go and you get Richardson. You tell Kirk, hey, man, you're not going to lose your starting spot. We're going to start you. You're going to stick with us for another year. We're going to sit Richardson behind you, and you do the same thing Baltimore did with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean,
you let it ride. That dude's going to be. He's got some talent. I ain't talking Malik Willis bullshit. This dude's got what the wherewithal to make it in the NFL.
Yeah, and if he falls a little bit, there's a possibility. But with the fact that we've only got 5 draft picks right now, it kind of limits what we're going to do.
Ideally, I would like to get 4 more mid-round picks before the beginning of the draft.
Which we might be able to do if we're trading Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, some of this other stuff. I think the more likely scenario is we let it ride with Kirk this year and then start looking in the 2024 draft for a quarterback.
But then you're drafting and you need and drafting because of a need.
You are.
Yep.
Unless you can sign some,
You're in a Christian Ponder spot, but you got to make sure that you got the right people making the right decisions.
Yeah, and that's true. That's very true. And maybe they'll surprise us. If one of these guys falls, Richardson or something like that, maybe they make a play for him. Who knows?
I would love a pick of Richardson in that first round for the Vikings. That would be ideal, in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, most mock drafts I'm seeing, he's either going to Carolina at 6 or Atlanta at 7. So I doubt he falls anywhere close to where we can get at him. But if he does start to tumble a little bit, I have no problem taking a swing at him. I mean, I've always been a proponent of.
At this point, that's what the league is looking for, and that's the quarterback that this league is built around is somebody like him, and he can take it to the next level. I mean, that's the potential that's there. Yeah. And if he fell into our laps, I would snag him right up.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible at this point in time, I guess. But we'll see how that goes as we get closer to the draft. But
right.
But anyway, that's pretty much the quarterback position, kind of the history of it on the team. Again, we're going to need to sign somebody, whether we draft a young guy to sit behind Kirk for a year, pick up one of these veteran free agents that we mentioned earlier, because right now we only have one quarterback. And, of course, we're not going into the season with one quarterback. Because as San Francisco showed, you can go into the season with 4 quarterbacks and it's
Dude.
not enough.
Ryan Wright played quarterback back in high school. We'll be just
Yeah,
fine.
he did. But I would prefer not to get to that point.
Dude, Ryan Wright's dating that chick from Wolf of Wall Street, Margaret Robbie.
No, he's not.
Yeah, I know that's not true.
That was a Twitter thing going on last week that basically they were putting just random sports personalities up as dating Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn, or whatever, whoever you want to put her at. But
yeah.
But anyway,
Rhino.
What's that?
Rhino Wright. Excuse me.
Yeah, there you go. The other Rhino.
Yep.
But anyway, that's about all I got on the quarterback thing. You got anything else you want to hit on that for?
No, I think that was great. Good segment.
All right. So with that, we're going to roll into another one of our classic beer commercials. So head yourself on over to the fridge, grab yourself a cold one, crack it open, check this out, and we'll be back in a minute.
Want a beer? Mm-hmm. You know, this is really an interesting six-pack. See how it's completely covered? See the ends? Covered. Mm-hmm. That's so light won't get in. Light can spoil beer. Uh-huh. And this is good beer, so they don't want light messing around with it.
Well, in that case, why don't we turn off the lights?
All right.
Little innocent plug of bionicdisco.com at the end of that commercial there.
Well, I mean,
I was watching a beer commercial anymore towards the end of that thing.
Hey, it was their thing, so we'll give them credit for it. I mean, that's the proper thing to do. So,
what a commercial! That was good. That was good.
Hey, I thought it was interesting, so we're going to throw it in there. But with that, we are going to roll in now to, of course, there's a little game going on Sunday that. It's not quite at the level of the flag football Pro Bowl that was last weekend, but apparently there is a game called the Super Bowl going on this Sunday between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Come on, Chiefs.
Now, it looks like, of course, Mahomes amazingly played on a high ankle sprain 2 weeks ago against the Bengals and managed out a victory. He's had 2 weeks to rest on that. I believe the Wednesday injury report, all available all available Chiefs players were practicing. Mecole Hardman will not play. They've already announced that. I don't think he's even active right now. On the Eagles side of things, I don't think there's any major injuries right now. I didn't dive too much into this because it's not Vikings related, but of course you got a few storylines. You've got the Kelsey brothers going against each other. First time in Super Bowl history that two brothers have played against each other. You've got
in the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl, yes. You've got the Andy Reid. They're called the revenge game, which maybe would have had more meaning to it if this had been a year or two after Reid left.
I heard Andy Reid fired Nick Sirianni.
I know Sirianni was with him at one point in time, I think.
And he fired him, yeah, when he took over the staff in Kansas City. He fired Sirianni.
Yes. That part I did not know, so there's a little interesting twist.
I heard that from Dan Barrero, so that's definitely some truth to that.
Yeah, but
he was like, yeah, because there's kind of it's a revenge game for Sirianni in a way too.
It's not a revenge game for Andy Reid because Andy Reid has been in Kansas City now for 10 years. So the time for revenge games
unless
have gone.
Unless you're our age, you don't remember Andy being in Philly. Basically, is what you're saying here.
For a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, he is. Like,
I mean,
that's how long it's been since he's been in Philly.
Mm-hmm. I guess we'll just hit it right away here. What do you think we're going to see on here, and what do you think about this game?
High-scoring affair, in my opinion. Two big offenses facing off against one another. Defense is going to be huge this game. It really is. Special teams as well. I think it comes down to who makes the least amount of mistakes, and that's who's going to win this game. I want Kansas City to win, but Jalen Hurts and the Eagles team have a lot of confidence going into this game too, as well. It's gonna boil down to who plays better between Mahomes and Hurts, and the team that makes the least amount of mental errors and mistakes during the game that wins this game. And I believe it's gonna be high scoring. Like I said, it's gonna be a high scoring affair.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Patrick Mahomes is on another level above everybody else in this league until he proves otherwise.
Right.
Especially now that Tom Brady has retired, Patrick Mahomes is
Mahomes and there's everybody else.
Yeah, Mahomes is the top of the mountain, and all those weapons they've got a running game now. Their defense, I mean, their defense shut the door on Burrow and company in that AFC Championship game. I was seriously impressed with their defense. I didn't think it was that good.
I think a little bit of joy in watching McKinnon do his thing there too, a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, he used to be a Viking. He's still doing it.
Yeah, he's more their change of pace guy. Pacheco is their
flash plays this year, and it's been nice to see.
Yeah, and I do believe Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been activated off of injured reserve, and he should play as well. So
they got a nice stable of backs over there for sure.
They do. I agree with what you said. I think it's probably going to be an entertaining game. It's going to be a fairly high scoring game. But there's no way I'm going to go against Mahomes in this one. I think Kansas City gets it done. I hope Kansas City gets it done because, like I said, I don't really hate the Eagles per se as a team. Their fan base does not deserve another Super Bowl. You know, you're seeing footage from the NFC Championship game. You know, they're standing out there, they're throwing the beer cans, they're throwing eggs, they're throwing all this other stuff. Guys, don't be assholes. You can have a rivalry with everybody else, but it's a bad look for your city. It's a bad look for your fan base, and it makes people hate you.
That's absolutely true. I think this is the first time that the two number one seeds have met in the Super Bowl in a long time as well.
It's been a while, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So the best and the best are literally going head to head. This is going to be a fun day.
Yep. But I'm taking Kansas City. Probably be like a 37-30 game or 37-34, somewhere in that range, I think.
I mean, Mahomes has been here before. He knows what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Hurts' first time here. A lot of people like to say the Eagles kind of had a cupcake schedule going into the Super Bowl this year. Granted, they had to prove it through the playoffs like anybody else. But it's gonna be a prove it game here for Philly, in my opinion, and I believe they're gonna have to give it all they got to get through Mahomes and company.
I think so too, but
so yeah, I got Kansas City as well here.
Okay. All right. So with that, we have once again reached the best segment of our program as we take a look at the players to wear number 97 in this week's edition of Brunswick's Best. So why don't you roll that beautiful bean footage, Lance, and let us know what you got.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
All right, again. All right. Next week we'll get that right.
We're still working the kinks out of this stuff. I use, StreamYard, everything else new. It's different, but yeah.
Oh, man. All right. I love the picture of Everson there, too. That's a great snap of Everson as a person, basically, in general. That snap of him. If you want to bring that up again, quick. Yeah, that's Everson Griffin in a nutshell right there. For sure. Anyways, I'm not going to start with Everson, but yes, the dude is definitely on this list. It's a list of two. So the one that I didn't mention, we're going to start with because he was here before Everson, and he really made an impact on this defense. And that guy is none other than Mr. Henry Thomas himself. What an underrated son of a gun this guy was when he played here. And he had a pretty long, good career as well after he left. So, defensive tackle. Henry Thomas had a very good run for some very good Minnesota Vikings defenses, with whom he paired with Keith Millard and John Randall to wreak havoc in the middle of Minnesota's defensive line. Thomas played for the Minnesota Vikings for the first 8 seasons of his career. A third-round pick out of the Vikings out of LSU in 1987. Thomas started 116 of his 118 career games for Minnesota and averaged 7 sacks a season from the defensive tackle position, which is pretty impressive. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler for the Vikings and was even a second-team All-Pro in 1993. He joined the Detroit Lions in 1995, where he played 2 seasons, and he subsequently played 4 seasons with the New England Patriots and retired from the game. During his NFL career, he was responsible for 93.5 sacks, over 1,000 tackles at the defensive tackle position. That is insane, man.
Mm-hmm.
4 interceptions, 19 forced fumbles, 14 fumble recoveries, and 3 defensive touchdowns, while also being named one of the 50 greatest Vikings. And Henry Thomas, that's why you made the list this week, brother.
Woo!
Woo! All right, moving along. Speaking of woo, we got Everson Griffin coming in here. Now, he was drafted in the 4th round of the 2010 NFL draft by the Vikings out of USC. Griffin played sparingly in his first 4 seasons with the team, but looked good when he was given snaps. Kind of like Robeson in a way, like last week we got to talk about. When you got Jared Allen here, the snaps you got to take them when you get them, because Jared Allen ain't coming out very often.
Right.
So Everson always had a high motor that never stopped. And that's on the field and off the field. Everson was 100 miles per hour all the time. Everson was finally able to carve out a role in 2012, bursting onto the scene with 3 sacks of Aaron Rodgers in the season finale that actually helped propel the Vikings to the postseason that year. He became a full-time starter in 2014, and despite only starting 1 game in the previous 4 seasons, he never looked back. Everson spent 11 of his 12 seasons in the purple and gold, with 1 lost season splitting time between Dallas and Detroit, before landing back in Minnesota for his final tour in 2021. Since breaking out of just being a rotational guy his first 4 years in the league, outside of a couple tough battles with his mental health, he started 93 games over the last 7 years with the team. After not tallying any sacks his rookie year, Everson went on to post at least 4 sacks in every season in his career, posting double-digit sacks 3 of those times. Everson tallied 4 Pro Bowls in his career and a second-team All-Pro in his time here. In total, Everson registered over 400 tackles, 85.5 sacks, 10 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions, 20 fucking pass deflections on the defensive line, and 2 defensive touchdowns for that, Everson, you made the list. Also, going back to Henry Thomas, his nickname was Hardware Hank.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, he's not on the list, but he's worth the brief mention. The dude's a great dude. He had a decent season for us this year. Harrison Phillips, you get a little mention here as well. So with that being said, that completes my list for this evening. We'll see you next week with 98.
All right. with that, that's all we have for this week. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you're out and about this week, please take us with you when you go, whether it be on the audio channels, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We're all over the place, so you can surely find us if you look a little bit. If you've not done so yet, please hit that subscribe button down below. Helps us out a ton. Helps us to bring you more and better content. We're working on some big things for the off season, trying to get some guests on here. Shout out to our buddies over at Minnesota Sports Talk, Purple and Gold for Days, Under the Lights podcast. Been doing a lot of work with those guys. Planning on doing quite a bit more here in the future. Again, thank you, everybody. Super Bowl this weekend, and then things kick into high gear with the offseason. We're going to see a lot of movement here coming up with trying to get under the salary cap, then rolling into free agency, the draft, all that good stuff. I love this time of year. I love this part almost as much as the game itself because I'm a football nerd. I fully freaking admit it, and I love this shit. So why don't you take us home, Lance?
All year round. There's no off season here at Vikings Uncensored.
Absolutely not. So take us out of here, Lance, and we'll call it a night.
Yeah, I was getting pretty down there for a little bit about that defensive coordinator spot. I was, the Dynamos were starting to fall, and I was like, here we go again. We're gonna have to settle. We're gonna have to settle for somebody instead of going out and getting somebody that we, held with high prestige.
Right.
So we went out and we got our salvation at DC. I'd like to at least squeeze 2 years out of this guy. And Flores has got to have a chip on his shoulder. He's got just like Kevin O'Connell yet. I believe this is a huge signing at DC.
It is.
It really is. And a lot of these fans that aren't very they don't know much of Flores, or they're just not in tune with it. They're gonna like what they see, what he does here. And this is Flores' shot to really, have another look at possibly getting a head coach job, somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So you just got to live in the now. If he leaves next year, so what? Let's just live in now and see what the dude can do and go from there. Yep. And with that being said, I went from being down here about thinking we're gonna fuck this up to being right back up again. Typical Vikings fashion. Yep. So with that being said, we'll catch you all next week.
All right. Running back position breakdown next week, guys. So have a good weekend. We'll see you later.